Courtesy of Mark Panopoulos and Mike Devine. There's the almighty Top 40 Timeline chimes, the famed chimes. And
the Leah chimes
Leah
that never
chimes.
got to use them for what she was bought them for.
You know why we do
our radio chimes.
You know why we do this? This is in respect for the old days of radio in the 30s.
Of course, I remember.
That's why we do it. Anyway, I know we've got.
I'm only a few years younger than you. I'm not that much younger.
I'm Big Daddy Russ Horton. This is the Top 40 Timeline video show, along with the radio show, and we're going to say hi to all our stations in a moment. And I know we've got a busy show, right? And this is Leah Lywood, my partner in crime over here. Amanda's away this week, but she'll hopefully be back next week. We took a little bit of time off there, but
occasionally we are right now. It's been busy.
Yeah, it's been busy in our personal lives, and we don't live in the same towns. This is Georgetown. She lives way over yonder. Tell you.
Yeah, actually, and Amanda's way over yonder, the other way, in the opposite direction now. So
now we've got the Top 40 Timeline. Of course, the show has been on since 2007, and but we're expanding. And I thought to myself, we'll see what other stations want to run it. And surprisingly, we're promoting it on Facebook groups with internet radio stations, and we're gaining a couple of shows every week, or a couple of stations every week as affiliates, so the more the merrier. We'd like to say hi to the Lynx Radio Network in Calgary, Alberta. You can hear the Top 40 Timeline Saturday at 3 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 5 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays. Then we are on Pirate Radio, Radio 42 North, the Pirate of the Great Lakes in Windsor, Ontario, the Motor City, and we're on there every weekend as well. And hello to Tony Gossman over there. And a big shout out to Michael Cole on a brand new radio station for us. Saturdays at 1 p.m. Central, that is 3 p.m. Eastern. We're on the beat of EastTexas.com, which is East Texas, of course. And on the beat of EastTexas.com. Don't talk like that, no. And, of course, we're on Radio GTA in Toronto, midnight Eastern on Saturday nights, and FM 108.ca, the flagship of the show, Saturdays at 6 p.m. This is all with Big Daddy and Peter the piano player with a polyester tie and Bud the Spud on a stick. You used to date Bud the Spud on a stick, as a matter of fact. We all know that. Halton Hills Online, Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern. That's our local community radio station. We're also heard Music Box for Friends in Brussels, Belgium. Big Daddy's Wakes Up Brussels at 6 o'clock local time. That is 5 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time and 12 midnight Eastern. There you are. We're on Hit Oldies in New England, USA. Hello to Steve West and the gang over there. And we're on Sundays at 8 o'clock there. We're on Party Dog in Cambridge, Ontario with Mike Devine. Sundays at 6 p.m. And I heard that our radio show is the highest rated show on the station there. So that's great. UK National Radio. Hello to Nigel Crane in the UK. Saturdays at 5 p.m. That's noon Eastern. And Radio 365 in the UK. Andrew Fairbrass and the gang were heard Sundays. And we're so happy and so proud to be on all these radio stations. There's that frog in my throat again, baby.
I am. I told you I'm going to get some worms. Bait worms will be out soon. You have to start swallowing one before the show, and we'll keep that frog at bay for a while.
So who wants to start with what?
You, go.
You want me to start?
Of course.
And then we're going to have a few tidbits. This is rock and roll trivia, of course. And as we call this, the Air Radio Music History and Trivia for March 25th to March 29th from the Top 40 Timeline. This song is about the travails of using marijuana and opium, which is grown in Bangkok. In a 2012 interview, Alex Lifeson of Rush told High Times that a passage to Bangkok is about a fun little journey to all the good places you could go after having a puff.
No, to have a puff.
Or to have it, yeah.
To have a puff.
But he added that they thought the song would be fun to write, and that he felt drummer lyricist Neil Peart handled it in a very eloquent way. He also said that the song was most likely written and sketched out with an acoustic guitar in front of a cassette player in the farmhouse. Rush liked to make initial recordings in that way before going into the basement to rehearse. In 2009, Guitar World interview Jack Lifeson cited Kashmir by Led Zeppelin as an influence on the song. My God, Led Zeppelin influenced so many people, didn't they?
Including me.
Yeah, including and me, everybody. You know, they were such a huge band, right?
They were amazing.
But,
they are amazing because
yeah.
they're still, you know.
This emotional, acoustic-driven ballad, A Reason to Fight by the band Disturbed, is about addiction, and you're going to tell us all about that. Aren't you?
Oh, why don't you just finish it off?
Okay. And it's originated from an idea that the guitarist Dan Donegan came up with, which he sent to frontman Dave Draiman. The Disturbed singer has seen a number of people he cares about fall victim to dependence issues, and Donegan's demo hit him hard. I know people who have battled addiction, and I've seen it in their face. The shame that they have, feeling that they let themselves and others down, Donegan said. We wanted to write a song with a positive message for people in that situation, to stay hopeful and not give up the fight, as challenging as it can be. It's an everyday struggle, but there can be also a light at the end of the tunnel. So there's the Disturbed. I love their version of The Sound of Silence, Disturbed. Just an incredible.
They've got some really good songs.
Incredible
really
song.
Good songs.
And he's got such a wonderful voice. You know,
very strong.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
All right, whose birthday is it this week?
So let's see, on the 25th. So Norman Jeffrey Healy, guitarist, singer, songwriter, trumpeter, trombonist, clarinetist, born March 25th, 1966. Healy grew up in the Toronto suburb of Etobicoke and was blind by the age of 1 due to retinoblastoma, a rare form of eye cancer. His eyes were removed and replaced with ocular prosthesis when he was 8 months old. Can you imagine? Oh my goodness. He began playing guitar at age 3 and was initially self-taught. He quickly developed an unusual playing style similar to that employed by Fred McKenna, placing the instrument flat across his lap and fretting the strings overhand, like a lap steel guitar. He attended a boarding school for the blind from grades 1 to 7, and in his youth played country music, jazz, rock, and reggae. He began performing in rock bands when he was 13, playing in such short-lived Toronto groups as Blue Direction. By the time he was 19, Healy had developed a reputation in Toronto as a blues rock prodigy. In July 1985, he was invited to join legendary American bluesmen Albert Collins and Stevie Ray Vaughan, wouldn't that be something, who became a very close friend, on stage at the Toronto blues venue Albert's Hall. Concentrating on the 1960s style blues rock in the vein of Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton, he formed the Jeff Healy Band late in 1985 with bassist Joe Rockman and drummer Tom Stephen. The trio made several club tours across Canada, which included opening for the band, and that's the band, in 1986. In 2001, Healy opened a nightclub in Toronto called Healy's, which later moved to a larger location in the downtown entertainment district and was renamed Jeff Healy's Roadhouse. He performed regularly at both venues. Recognized as one of the world's premier blues rock guitarists, Healy toured and played with such artists as Buddy Guy, B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eric Clapton, ZZ Top, Bonnie Raitt, the Rolling Stones, and the Allman Brothers, just to mention a few. Over the years, he received great recognition and awards. Jeff Healy had been battling cancer for 3 years and succumbed to the disease on March the 2nd, 2008 at age 42 after it spread from his legs to his lungs. He would have been 58 this year.
He's a great guitar player. I loved his version of While My Guitar Gently Weeps.
And you know what? I think if I remember correctly, Katie found out that she's actually somehow related through their lines to Jeff Healy. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was a conversation we had
Katie
years
Downs
ago.
is a friend of ours, and
yeah,
apparently that's connected. I know I'm connected to Tim Horton.
It's back a little ways, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. My family's connected to Tim Horton somehow. As a matter of fact.
Well, I believe that. Your name is Horton.
Yeah, well, I mean, and we do look alike. I mean, look at my physique. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you should be out on that ice with our Leafs team. What are they doing? They're not thinking.
The Maple Leafs. 1786 this week. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart completes his piano concerto number 24 in C minor, K, 491. Beethoven hears the work in rehearsal and remarks in admiration to a colleague that we shall never be able to do anything like that.
Can you imagine? Mozart to Beethoven.
That's right. Two of the biggest.
I'll do this, and you can do the big one after.
Okay.
Okay, 1972, The Godfather opens in theaters. Musically significant because the character Johnny Fontaine is supposedly based on Frank Sinatra, and because Godfather of becomes a common musical honorific. Oh my goodness, excuse me. The film, based on the 1969 novel, stars Al Martino as Fontaine, who uses his mob connections to find a film role that resuscitates his career. Sinatra was rumored to have mob ties and was at least an influence on the character, something director Francis Ford Coppola admits in a commentary for the Blu-ray release. But beyond the Sinatra connection, there is the Godfather title, which is soon bestowed on James Brown, who becomes known as the Godfather of Soul. Other musical pathfinders also received this informal designation: Godfather of Ska, Laurel Aitken, Godfather of Go-Go, Chuck Brown, Godfather of Punk, Iggy Pop, and then there's Snoop Dogg, christened the Dogfather on his second album. Note that Aretha Franklin is the Queen of Soul, but not the Godmother. Maybe if that was a movie?
I could do.
I'll do the next one, then you can do the... I'm tired,
right.
so the little passages are easier for me.
She's trying to get off work.
I am.
She's giving it all to me.
I am.
Go ahead, baby.
Kinks, see what I mean? I can't read. It's been a very crazy week. Kinks leader Ray Davies wrote the song A Rock and Roll Fantasy, calling it a method acting songwriting job. The king is dead, rock is dead, or is done. While he was writing the song in 1977, he learned that Elvis Presley had died, which influenced the lyric, The king is dead, rock is done. He was staying in New York at the time, and when he looked out his window late at night, he saw a single light on in one of the buildings. Davies imagined that light being the apartment of an ardent Elvis fan, which became the character Dan the Fan in the song. The Kinks were falling apart around this time, and guitarist Dave Davies wanted to stop touring, and keyboard player John Gosling and bass player Andy Pyle had decided that Misfits would be their last album with the group. Ray Davies explained in Rolling Stone the song was almost a homage to them. If you listen to the lyrics, it's about someone leaving the band because they've given up the cause, and the two brothers will find a way through this.
Well, they have reconciled in recent years, and there's even been pictures of them together. So there was a rift for several years with those two.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And but their father was a musician too.
Yes, he was.
He enjoyed their rock and roll, and he knew more about what the Kinks were doing than the Kinks. He helped them a lot in their early
that's a few there's so many bands that people don't realize that they had parents at some point that were connected, whether it be in producing or the musicians or. Yeah. You've got a long feet to go ahead here. This one and the next one.
Neil Young's a rock star, bucks a coffee shop, criticizes Starbucks for its alleged involvement with agrochemical company Monsanto and its use of genetically modified organisms, or GMOs. Young wrote on his website, "Still no lattes for me, folks. I am not going to support a company that actively tries to defeat the will of the people by fighting for their right to know what is the food they eat." Contrary to the misleading information coming from Starbucks, the coffee company is in alliance with other food giants, including Monsanto, and suing the state of Vermont to overturn the GMO labeling laws voted for by the people.
You're not done yet.
And
Uh-oh.
Speaking of Starbucks, actually, a little off the musical track, but here are a few Starbucks fun facts. Starbucks is named after Starbuck, a character in Moby Dick.
Did you know that?
No, I had no idea. And I got one at the end that'll blow your mind.
Okay.
Every scene of the film Fight Club has a Starbucks coffee cup hidden in it somewhere.
Subliminal, right?
There are over 87,000 different drink combinations at Starbucks. My God, 87,000? Really? Wow. Starbucks has a different logo for Saudi Arabia because the normal logo showed too much female flesh. That's crazy.
Oh, that's definitely not something that they will allow because they're covered, right?
The highest elevation Starbucks is in Breckenridge, Colorado, is 9,600 feet. If you order a Starbucks Grand Coffee, you are drinking over 320 milligrams of caffeine. That is 4 times that inside a Red Bull. Wow.
And I won't drink Red Bull, so now you know why I don't drink Starbucks.
Starbucks uses round tables to make solo coffee drinkers feel less alone. Isn't that neat? But hey, here's
you had something
one for
else you were going to blow my mind with. What is it?
Well, Snickers. You know how Snickers bars.
Okay.
How Snickers got their name. It was the name of, and I told you earlier, what? Of a horse. Snickers was a horse. The dogs are going nuts over there.
They're looking at me like, what was that?
See, I told you it was a Loosey Goosey top 40 timeline. We got our dogs running around here.
Oh my goodness, that's funny.
All right, so is it my turn still?
Oh, you can do another one.
You want me to do? I love Diana.
I'm going to do a couple of the smaller clips because we get into a bigger one again.
Okay.
That'll be yours. So give it
Diana Ross, having a birthday this week, is born in Detroit, Michigan in 1945. Steven Tyler is born Steven Tallarico in Yonkers, New York in 1948. Vicki Lawrence was born in Inglewood, California this week in 1949. Teddy Pendergast was born Kingstree, South Carolina in 1950. And Kenny Chesney is born in Knoxville, Tennessee in 1968. So
and there are some others too, but I usually try to group the ones that most people are going to know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There are others, but for the most part. But yeah, can you imagine all of those born on the same day, just different years?
That's right. That's right. 1966?
So I'll do this one, and you can do when we get into the larger one.
Yeah.
1966, The Strangers, featuring future Aerosmith. I don't know if it's Strangers or Strangers. I think it's Strangers.
I think so.
Featuring future Aerosmith frontman I told you I'm tired. Here we go. Try this again. Take 2. 1970, Peter Yarrow. No. See? I'm losing myself already. You wonder why I want to write the small clips.
1966, The Strangers.
The Strangers. That's where I got lost.
Yeah.
Featuring future Aerosmith frontman Steven Tallarico. Later, Steven Tyler. Open for the Birds at the Westchester County Center in White Plains, New York. The Strangers arrange for girls to sit in the front row and scream for them, but it's hardly necessary as the crowd goes nuts during the set when they play 6 songs instead of their allotted 2. You know how I got lost? Because you just read one about Steven, and I was thinking I was rereading it. Yeah. Alrighty, 1970. Peter Yarrow of Peter, Paul, and Mary is arrested in Washington, D.C. for taking immoral liberties with a 14-year-old girl. He pleads guilty and spends 3 months in jail. I was kind of surprised when I heard that.
I haven't heard that one before, to tell you the truth. I'm sure it was in the paper at the time. I was 10 years old.
Sure. But, I was almost 6.
When you think of Peter, Paul, and Mary, you think of purity and...
Well, that's what I mean. That they were, they always looked like such
a jet plane kind of stuff.
Exactly. So I thought that was an interesting tidbit.
Now here's a few tidbits here on the bluesy piano track. A Room of Our Own. Billy Joel details the differences between men and women that can become grating in close quarters.
Huh? I wouldn't know anything about that, would you?
Stop touching me. He suggests they each get a room of their own to keep from getting on each other's nerves. It's one of those contrast songs, he told Sirius XM in 2016. You got this and I got that, but we all end up in the same different room. A room of our own, and it's very much influenced by John Lennon and the bitter thing he used to have. Lennon's influences runs deep on the nylon curtain. Joel was devastated by the former Beatles' 1980 murder and found himself imitating Lennon's style in an attempt to keep a piece of the former Beatle alive. I think I was channeling John Lennon. I didn't want him to be gone, he told Sirius XM. I still wanted to hear John Lennon's songs. I wanted to hear his voice. Even producer Phil Ramone pointed out to me while I was making the Nylon Curtain album, "You're singing a lot like John Lennon." And I said, I can't help it. I wrote the songs thinking about John Lennon. Isn't that neat? And I think everybody remembers where they were when John Lennon was shot.
Pretty much.
I remember I was watching Monday Night Football, and Howard Cosell told me on the broadcast. Couldn't believe it.
I was actually out with somebody for the night, with a friend of mine, and all of a sudden everybody around us was all being talked about where we were. So it was.
Is this the long one you want me to do?
No, I'll do this one
you're
here.
going to do this one?
Yeah, I'll do this one here.
She's not feeling well today.
I'm feeling okay. I'm just tired. It's been a very
tired,
very busy week.
She's tired.
And I don't want to keep screwing it up, so I'll do this little short ones, and you can take on the long one. I'm going to be like Mandy did the week
That's why they
before.
call me Big Daddy, baby. You're going to lean on me.
So the phrase in the song, "A Rose by Any Name" by Blondie, "A Rose by Any Other Name," originates from a dialogue in William Shakespeare's play Romeo and Juliet, in which Juliet argues that the name is of little consequence. What matters is the inherent qualities of the person or things. So the lyrics, "What's in a name that which we call a rose?" Or I believe this is Shakespeare. I'm not sure if this is the Shakespeare or this. I think this is the Shakespeare. "What's in a name that which we call a rose? By any other name would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes." This was written by Blondie keyboardist Matt Katz. Oh, I guess maybe it was the words. Katz Bowen and his wife Laurel Katz Bowen. Laurel was expecting, but the couple didn't know what gender the baby was, so Matt came up with this song about whether you're a boy or a girl, I'm going to love you just the same. The song went on to become an anthemic for the transgender people and all sexes in every shape and form.
Now, yeah, I've got "Are You a Boy or Are You a Girl" by the Barbarians stuck in my head. Now you've said that. I got one of those.
I got lots of earworms I should be putting yours.
Oh, I'm not going to get into the Muppets.
After
not this
the
week.
mana mana.
Oh, God.
Mana
Mana,
mana. Anyways, now that everybody else hates us now too, it's your fault because you introduced this weeks ago.
Tony Banks having a birthday this week. Keyboardist for Genesis, is born in East Hoathly in 1950. Andrew Ferris, who forms In Excess along in Perth, Western Australia, East Sussex, England in 1959. We have Mariah Carey, born in Huntington, Long Island, New York, and in 1970, Fergie, of course, that's Stacey Ferguson of Black Eyed Peas, is born in Hacienda Heights, California in 1975.
And there are more, but again, I kind of picked the most well-known.
This week in 1958, stereo albums are introduced. So it's a bit of a landmark for the vinyl industry there. Want me to do one more?
Sure, do one more.
More?
Do the next couple.
In 1973, this week, Rolling Stone magazine reported that after becoming a disciple of Sri Chinmoy, Carlos Santana had changed his name to Devadip, which means the lamp of the light of the Supreme, of course. We all knew that. So there's the latest by Carlos Santana. Oh, I'm sorry, Devadip, Evil Ways.
1991. New Kids on the Blocks. Donnie Wahlberg was arrested after setting fire to carpets using a bottle of vodka at the Sealbach Hotel, Louisville. Wahlberg plea bargains the charge down to criminal mischief and was ordered to perform fire safety and anti-drug abuse promos. Can you imagine lighting fire? You face burning the whole place down.
Crazy
well, I'll
stuff.
never understand that. Maybe he was drunk, I guess.
Crazy stuff, man.
2015, country singer Willie Nelson announced that he and his family were hard at work on a new brand of marijuana called Willie's Reserve.
All right, man. All right, fire out.
Stores of the same name that were being planned and were to include his signature brand and other strains that would be grown to meet quality standards.
Willie is well known for smoking weed.
He's never hidden it ever, I don't think.
And he's still alive. What does that tell you? He's 80-something. You know what I mean? You don't find too many drinkers that are 80-something. No. 2021, Morgan Wallen's Dangerous, the double album, which debuted at number 1 in America, logs its 10th week at the top, the most weeks for a debut chart topper since Whitney Houston's self-titled album of 1987. In its fourth week at number one, Wallen was caught on camera using the N-word addressed to his white friend after a night of drinking, but instead of tanking the album when his music was pulled from radio stations, the controversy helped extend its run, and fans bought and streamed it in support. He's probably just fooling around. And
reverse psychology.
People say things in the real world that really should be kept within their own circle if they're going to say them. And I think that was
again, that's the problem with being famous. There are things that people would state, and it's not even meant in a mean way. He was talking to a white friend.
That's what I mean.
But he's famous.
Jest.
So let's see what we can do to blow this up, because that's good for ratings, and that's all it is.
And really, it did help them in the end, didn't it?
And that's exactly what happened.
Go ahead.
Rush, Blood to the Head, a song by Coldplay. Frontman Chris Martin told Crud magazine in 2002 that this song is about impulsiveness. It depicts a person losing control of their emotions and seeking violent revenge before blaming their actions on a rush of blood to the head. Martin makes considerable use of this baritone on A Rush of Blood to the Head. The Coldplay vocalist told Billboard magazine this was a homage to Johnny Cash. He continued, him, Dylan, and Hank Williams are just the greatest men with just guitars, and I really wanted to sing a song low. It's
amazing how much influence Johnny Cash had on the music industry, not only from the old timers, but the kids of today love Johnny Cash, and he had some great songs. He was years ahead of his time. Talented man. And you're doing the Anthrax, or do you want me to do that one?
You can do that one, and I'll do the smaller ones coming up. You do the
Anthrax song "A Skeleton in the Closet" is based on the Stephen King novella "Apartment Pupil."
Apt Pupil.
Apt Pupil. I thought that meant apartment pupil.
Yeah. Oh,
anyway, Apt Pupil. It tells the story of a boy who meets a man who was a Nazi during World War II. The boy suddenly has a desire to kill and has nightmares when he isn't killing. He eventually takes a rifle, goes to a highway, and starts shooting people. It takes police 5 hours to take him down. And the Among and Living LP on which this track appears was dedicated to the memory of former Metallica bass player Cliff Burton, who was killed in a bus accident 6 months prior to the album's release. Stephen King is one of the passions of Anthrax, and both this track and Among the Living were inspired by his stories. However, the lawyers at their record label got paranoid about the lyrics and said the band had to get permission. Once Anthrax manager spoke to the author on the phone, it turned out that he is a fan of the group. Isn't that neat? So it goes both ways.
That's it. So here we go. March 28th, 1955. Reba McEntire is born in McAlester, Oklahoma. Cheryl R. James, who was Salt of the Salt and Pepper, was born in Brooklyn, New York on March 28th, 1966. And in 1986, Stefani Germanotta enters the world in New York City, New York, but rises to fame under the name Lady Gaga.
It's amazing how many of these performers this week are from New York City.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
1967, working on sessions for the new Beatles album, Sgt. Pepper, at Abbey Road Studios in London. John Lennon recorded his lead vocal for Good Morning, Good Morning, and Paul McCartney added a lead guitar solo to the track. Lennon had decided he wanted to end the song with animal sound effects and asked that they be sequenced in such a way that each successive animal was capable of scaring or eating the preceding one.
Oh my God.
And I didn't know that. But leave it to John, right?
There's always a twist with the Beatles, isn't there?
Always. Oops, where am I going here?
1973. Okay. Go ahead. Led Zeppelin. You might as well do that one.
My boys. 1973, Led Zeppelin released their fifth studio album, Houses of the Holy, in the UK. The album title was a dedication by the band to their fans who appeared at venues they dubbed Houses of the Holy. The cover is a collage of several photographs which were taken at Giant's Causeway, Northern Ireland, by Aubrey Powell of Hypnosis. The two children who modeled for the cover were siblings Stefan and Samantha Gates. And it's funny because there was another gentleman, originally they were partners, Aubrey Howell and this other gentleman. And the other gentleman had made some statements and Jimmy Page said, Racket? Because he had a different theme altogether. And he's, racket? You say we're racket? Gone. And he ended up working out with his partner, and this is how it came to be.
It's funny how things turn out, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. So you might as well do this in the next one.
In 1992, over $100,000, that's 58,800 pounds worth of damage, was caused at the Irvine Meadows Amphitheater in California when Ozzy Osbourne invited the first 2 rows of the audience on stage. Several others took up the offer, and the band was forced to exit the stage.
He's such a nutball.
Yeah, nut. Like, I think he just wanted to see what would happen.
He found out.
He's starting to look old, eh? Seen him lately. Supertramp's Roger Hodgson and Rick Davies were always credited as the writers, but they did most of their writing separately, with only one of them contributing to the majority of each song, and whoever did the bulk of the writing usually sang it. Hodgson's songs were about searching for meaning, especially for religion and God. The song A Soapbox Opera appears to question the Catholic view of the deity from Hodgson's perspective. Rather than the truth, their reasons create questions that come in his mind, suggesting both the fathers and the sisters were wrong, of course. And I'll do the Jackson Browne story as well.
Okay.
The song Jackson Browne, a song for Barcelona. That pays tribute to Barcelona, the city that gave me back my fire and restored my appetite. Browne first visited Barcelona just after the 1992 Olympics were held there. This is a song for Barcelona, for architecture and football, and for the streets that gave me refuge in my escape from rock and roll.
And those are lyrics, of course.
Yeah, I share a birthday with him, but Jackson Browne. The singer-songwriter told Uncut magazine he sort of inherited an apartment from a friend and fell in love with the bohemian neighborhood of Gracia, with its tiny bars and restaurants. Browne sought to capture the transformational moments from his time in Barcelona. Writing a song is like consulting a personal oracle. You think you're writing about one thing, that this is what is really going on, he said. A song for Barcelona is a homage, but I realize that it's also a meditation on love and what happens to every other part of your life as a result. So it transcends locale and becomes something more universal. There you go. Jackson Browne. I think my favorite song is Running on Empty. I just love that song.
I don't. You know what? That one Barcelona, I like it. It really does sound like something you were there, you would hear.
Yeah.
The song that song Barcelona. I quite enjoyed it. When you want a more kind of quiet, peaceful sound, that's a really nice song to listen to. I quite enjoy it. So born today, we have Chad Allen, who was the founding member and original lead singer of the Guess Who. And he also was the founding member of Bachman Turner Overdrive, which I didn't know. I knew he was a part of it. I did not know he was actually the founding member. He's born in 1943. His name was Alan Peter Stanley Cabell in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Composer Evangelos. Oh, here we go.
Papathanasio.
Papathanasio. That's Greek. Is
Yes.
it not? Yes. Is born in Greece in 1943. Terry Jacks, Seasons in the Sun, is born in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada in 1944. Jane's Addiction frontman, excuse me, now wait till you hear this name. Perry Farrell is born, his actual name was Peretz Bernstein in Queens, New York in 1959. But his stage name is a play on the word peripheral. Perry Farrell,
okay.
Peripheral. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
In the sense that he's on the edge. Farrell fronts the band's Jane's Addiction and Porno for Pyros, but is most famous for launching the Lollapalooza Music Festival.
Might as well do that tiny one there in the bottom.
I'll do these two, then you can do the big one below. 1970, The Ed Sullivan Show broadcast live from hospitals treating soldiers wounded in Vietnam. Guests include Bobby Gentry and Gladys Knight and the Pips. 1973, Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show got their picture on the cover of the Rolling Stone magazine after their hit, On the Cover of a Rolling Stone.
How can you forget that song?
No, definitely not. It reached number 6 on the U.S. singles chart. According to the members of the group, they really did go out and buy 5 copies for their mothers, just like the song said.
I bet they did. You know, being on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine is something to be proud of. In 1979, this week, after attending a Dire Straits show during their residency at the Roxy in Los Angeles, Bob Dylan asked Mark Knopfler and drummer Pick Withers to play on the sessions for his next album. Sloan Train Comin' was the album, recorded in Muscle Shoals in May of 1979, and Jerry Wexler producing. Dylan had first heard Dire Straits' Mark Knopfler when his assistant Arthur Rosado played him in the single The Sultans of Swing, which is my favorite Dire Straits song. I love that song.
Yeah.
Industrial Disease is a good tune as well.
Yeah.
Industrial Disease. 1985, Janine Deckers, a singing nun, died at age 52 following a suicide pact with her longtime partner Annie Pesce. Her 1963 U.S. number 1 and UK number 7 single, Dominica, sold over 1.5 million copies, winning a Grammy Award for the year's Best Gospel Song. Have you ever heard that song?
Mm-hmm.
We used to play it all the time.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Deckers wrote about her financial difficulties in a suicide note, and in a great irony, the very day of her suicide, and unknown to her, the Belgian association that collects royalties for songwriters awarded her $300,000.
And she had passed.
And she died.
Can you imagine?
Isn't that sad?
Can you imagine?
She was a real nun.
Yes, she was.
And it was number 1 on Billboard. It was unreal. For the time, 63 was a funny time in rock and roll because it was the crossover point. Just before, the Beatles were already, they were already big in England. And, England knew about the British invasion a long time before we did.
Yes.
The early 60s, there was already happening there.
Oh, yes.
But 63 was kind of a funny time when the pop, the Frankie Avalons were on their way out, and the Gene Pitneys, and in was coming a new breed of rock and roll. Because really, the top 40 became very popish in the before 64.
Yep.
And then the lads come in and turned it up a notch. You know what I mean? Some rock and roll.
There was a whole lot exploded at that time.
Yeah.
A whole lot exploded, but there were some predominant ones, I think, initially.
Thanks for joining us again. This has been the Top 40 Timeline Video Show. And have you got anything to say at the end there that you wanted to say?
We just like uniting community worldwide.
There you go. We sure do.
One loving world.
And thank you to all our radio stations that run the show, the radio side. Thank you. And assume the position. I've got my FM 108 hat on, by the way.